In February 2003, a woman in suburban France looked down from her second-story window to see something dark on the pavement next door. Monique Lejeune, 52, lay face down on her own front walkway. Inside the house, investigators found evidence of a struggle that bordered on the feral. Monique had been stabbed over 50 times, but the deep lacerations on her hands and forearms told the story of a woman who had fought back with everything she had. This top-down view of the property reveals a significant physical contradiction. While the entryway was saturated with blood, there was no trail leading out to the walkway. Not a single drop connected the site of the attack to the spot where Monique eventually collapsed. The police drew a rapid conclusion. Monique was far too injured to have walked outside on her own. They deduced that a killer of immense physical strength must have overpowered her inside the home and then carried her heavy body out to the yard to be found. Detectives looked for a suspect who matched the profile of a large, violent male. They found Henri, a neighbor with a history of aggressive outbursts and property vandalism. When police informed him of the murder, his only reaction was an unsettling smile. The search for a strong male suspect also led back to Monique's own son, Jean-Luc. He had been seen riding his bicycle away from her home on the evening of the murder, making him the last known person to see her alive. Suspicions deepened when a neighbor reported an accidental, muffled phone call from the apartment building where Jean-Luc lived. In the background, two women were heard discussing a murder and the urgent need for an alibi for a man named Jean-Luc. Forensic teams soon found what they believed were the physical links. Jean-Luc's bicycle was coated in reddish-brown splatters, and a pair of his pants sat damp in the washing machine, marked with a dark, suspicious stain. Detectives elevated these disconnected details into certainties, simply because they aligned with the image of the man they were already looking for. Their focus on the strong male profile turned every coincidence into a conviction. The certainty of the police began to erode the moment the lab results arrived. Under scientific scrutiny, the case against the male suspects disintegrated. The stain on Jean-Luc's pants was mechanical grease, and the splatters on his bike were animal blood from a puddle in the street. Ultimately, the circumstantial links were completely dead ends. Forensic science provided a new direction through biological material found under Monique's fingernails. She had physically marked her attacker during her final struggle, leaving behind a microscopic profile of her killer. When technicians isolated the genetic markers, the results shattered the police theory. The DNA profile recovered from the crime scene belonged to a woman. This irrefutable data forced investigators to abandon their search for a strongman. They had to look at the people they had previously dismissed as being too small or too weak to have committed such a brutal act. The DNA led them to Beatrice Matisse, the 58-year-old ex-wife of Monique's husband. At 4'9" and physically frail, she was the exact opposite of the killer the police had imagined. Beatrice and Monique shared a decade of resentment. A 1993 allegation within the family had created a rift that never healed, leaving Beatrice stewing in a bitter feud for nearly 20 years. On the night of the murder, Beatrice went to the house under the guise of an apology. The encounter rapidly soured into an argument, ending with Monique insulting Beatrice's children and slamming the door in her face. Beatrice snapped. She retrieved a knife she kept under her car seat, forced her way back into the house, and immediately began her assault. Despite Beatrice having the weapon, Monique's sheer size and strength allowed her to tackle her attacker. She pinned Beatrice to the floor of the entryway, sustaining dozens of wounds as she fought to disarm her. Beatrice eventually escaped the house, dumping the knife and burning her clothes to hide the blood. She assumed the lack of witnesses and her own small stature would protect her. The adrenaline of the fight had sustained Monique longer than anyone thought possible. She had physically chased Beatrice out the door, staggering onto the walkway before her body finally gave out. The carnage inside that house served as a testament to Monique's physical power. She had turned an entryway into a battlefield, fighting with enough intensity to mark her attacker forever. When confronted with the DNA evidence in March 2003, Beatrice Matisse confessed. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison for the murder of Monique Lejeune. The investigation nearly failed because of a reliance on a psychological profile that favored physical appearance over evidence. A son and a neighbor were nearly implicated because they fit a mental image of violence. Investigators looked at the result of Monique's resistance and credited it to the strength of a man. failing to see the victim's own incredible willpower written into the crime scene. Monique bypassed the fallibility of human intuition. By capturing the DNA of her killer, she ensured that forensic science would provide the final, objective word on her behalf.